Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with a video.
I have always wanted to give birth to children of my own, so it was terrifying when I kept having miscarriages. The doctors couldn't find exactly what the issue was. It just seemed like my womb wouldn't be able to carry children. I got married 6 years ago to the man who changed my life. He taught me what it meant to be loved unconditionally. We love each other dearly, and each day that love grows even more because of how he has stood by me through thick and thin. He is my greatest cheerleader. We started trying to have kids 5 years ago, after 1 year of being married. We initially wanted to wait 2 years before actively trying to have kids, but I couldn't wait any longer and my husband didn't mind. In those 5 years, I have had 4 miscarriages, and each time it was more traumatic than the former one. Apart from what it did to my health, the emotional trauma was enough to put one under, especially because I really wanted kids. I didn't mind adopting children, but I also wanted to carry my own child. My husband never once got frustrated with me for not being able to carry our children. In fact, it was the opposite. He sometimes would get mad at me for worrying about it too much. I remember how excited we were when we got pregnant with our first. The whole family heard of it. We were so happy and the joy was tangible, so you can imagine the disappointment when I miscarried. Then there was a second, third, and sadly fourth miscarried pregnancy. I was beginning to give up, saying maybe it wasn't in my destiny to give birth to my own children. Accepting that was really hard for me. Sometimes I looked at myself in the mirror and wondered what was wrong with me and why my body was rejecting my babies. A lot of times I would put my hands on my belly and pray to God. I would pray for a miracle. After my last miscarriage, I made a personal decision to stop thinking about making babies for a while and just live life normally. I decided that my baby would come when it was time, and while I was waiting, I would enjoy my life and my marriage. I would live to the fullest, and nothing was going to take our joy as a family. Not even when we had family gatherings and people would make sly comments about my miscarriages and inability to have children. I was going to be strong and determined enough to protect my peace, my mental health, and my family. I tell you that it was the best decision I ever made. You know why? I was so much happier and better for it. I got pregnant and didn't even know for 2 months because I consciously stayed away from pregnancy test kits, though I was always on my vitamins. This gave me the idea to not tell anyone until we gave birth to our child. Only our doctor and bosses knew that we were expecting because of some permissions that my husband and I had to take for appointments and the like. This time, it felt different, and I wasn't pressured because I wasn't constantly getting calls from family members to know if I still had the baby. They didn't ask me that way, but I knew that's what they were doing, seeing as the news was always that I miscarried at some point. My husband supported my decision to keep the pregnancy secret until I gave birth. All the other pregnancies usually got terminated around the second trimester, so I made sure to be extra careful this time. I didn't do anything stressful and made sure to be on top of my game emotionally. I was determined to carry my baby till full term. I tried to hide the bump as much as I could, but when it became very visible, I took an early maternity leave. I was able to get that because my boss was well aware of what had been happening with my pregnancies. And the doctor also recommended that I reduce anything that could increase my stress levels. I gave birth yesterday, and my baby is doing so well. It is surreal. I keep looking over at her like, is this child really mine? I have never loved anything as much as I love her. We are leaving the hospital tomorrow and we'll break the news to our families when we get home. I'm super excited, but I know that some people would not be happy that we hid it. I don't really care, but let's see how it goes. We told them yesterday. They were all so excited, but my in-laws on my husband's side were furious that we hid it. His mom is especially angry with me because she said she knew it was my idea to deny her the opportunity to know and be there for her first grandchild's birth. I understand her point of view because she had been expecting grandchildren for a while, and my husband was her first child. His sisters were still teenagers, so they were not ready to start a family yet. I expected that she wouldn't be happy, but they took it a little too far with the arguments and accusing me of depriving her. She complained that there was no baby shower or gender reveal, and she was ill prepared for her grandchild, which she didn't like, and it was my fault. I just needed to do what was best for me and my child. I explained as I told them that everyone knowing that I was pregnant was adding pressure to me. Things became calmer towards the evening as everyone got to see the baby. During my pregnancy, I secretly told my mom because I needed some advice, but asked her to promise not to tell anyone, and she kept her promise. My mom lives in another state, so she is coming to see me and the baby tomorrow. My husband wouldn't leave the baby's side. Seeing him take care of her just warms my heart. It's so cute. When everyone was coming at me for hiding my pregnancy, he defended me and told them that it was our decision, and if they didn't like it and were not happy that the baby was here now and was very healthy, then they could leave. I have always loved how my husband stood up for me and guarded me against everyone, especially his own family members. My baby has been hitting all her milestones. Each time I look at her, I am still in awe. She is really my daughter, and I gave birth to her. Anyways, I'm here to tell you guys what's been going on. My mother-in-law found out that she had cancer a few months after I gave birth. It's been getting worse by the day, and everyone is just bracing themselves up. We went to visit her 2 days ago. After exchanging pleasantries and all of that, she mentioned that because her cancer was getting worse, she would like me to do one thing for her. She said that since I deprived her of the events leading up to her birth, I should throw a huge birthday party for her first birthday as compensation. I didn't want to do that, so I refused. She got emotional and started making a fuss and arguing. My husband expected me to just indulge her and do whatever she wanted, since it was like her dying wish. But I didn't see it that way. It was good enough that she had a grandchild, and there was no need for a big celebration full of people that my baby didn't know. She always got agitated whenever there were so many people around, even people she had seen before. Once there were too many people and they all were trying to play with her or get her to do something. She usually withdrew and would cry until they left. I wasn't going to put her through that on her birthday when I knew she would be miserable, even if it was to please my mother-in-law. When we got home, my husband tried to change my mind, but I really didn't want to. It was going to be too stressful for me having a baby who didn't want the crowd and then taking care of all the guests. I was the hospitable one, and my husband was no one to host a group of people. Plus, her birthday was in 4 days. How were we going to pull off a big party in 4 days without any planning beforehand? After I said all that, he let me be. I wondered if I was being a little inconsiderate. I know that the reason he tried to change my mind was because his mom was really sick, and he wanted to make her happy. My sister-in-law called to find out what our decision was concerning my daughter's birthday, and I said it would be a family thing with as few people as possible because firstly, we had nothing planned, and I honestly wasn't comfortable with having too many people at my house. If it was her birthday, she would want to do something that she was comfortable with, so I refused to make my daughter uncomfortable on her birthday. And it would break my heart if all she did was cry just so that mother-in-law could be happy with a big celebration. NTA, whatever you decide to do on your child's birthday is your choice, and you shouldn't be forced into celebrating big if you don't want to, and especially if you know that your daughter will be uncomfortable. I think everyone should be able to live with that. YTA. It won't take anything to fulfill her wish, if at all, just to brighten her day. I know what it means to have cancer and how painful and depressing it can be. I'm just happy for how your husband supports you and cares for you. It would be nice if you guys can find a middle ground so everyone can be happy. Maybe make the birthday not as big, but big enough for mother in law, and try to control what happens around your daughter as much as you can. She probably wouldn't remember her first birthday anyway.
Next story.
My mother, 36, and I, 16, female, have a complicated relationship. She is the classic absent mother who cares more about whatever guy she's seeing at the time than her own daughter, and has always resented me for hiding my father's affair from her when I was 11. Important later. Safe to say, we are not close. But she has never let me go hungry and has given me a roof over my head, so I can't really complain much. I started dating my boyfriend, M, when I was 12 years old, and almost 5 years later, we are still going strong. He has met my mother countless times over the past 4 years, and I have met his father a handful of times as well. Though we never introduced our parents, my mom only cares about herself, and his dad is always working. So 3 days ago, my mother told me she wanted to introduce someone to me. I knew she had been seeing a guy for a few months now, but didn't really care because she's almost always seeing someone new. This was the first time she had asked me to meet someone, however, so I was curious and decided to go. We drove to a nice restaurant, walked inside, and she led me over to a table where my boyfriend and his dad was sitting. I was totally shell shocked and just stared at her while she grinned and introduced him as her new fiance and my future stepdad. I walked out of the restaurant and my mom followed me, asking what was the matter. She told me it was rude to storm out in a fit, and I asked her where they met and if she knew he was M's father. She told me they met at a parents' night at our high school, which means there's a slim chance she wouldn't know who he was after one conversation, and said it didn't matter if he was M's father or not. I told her it absolutely mattered because if they married, me and M would be step siblings and would live together in some weird family dynamic that creeped me out just thinking about it. I told her I didn't want her to marry him, and she said if dating my stepbrother bothered me so much, we could just break up. I yelled at her and said that Em and I were together for 4 years, and if anyone was breaking up, it would be her and her 3-month boyfriend. She said that her relationship mattered more because she was an adult, and that I owed her for ruining her marriage with my dad. I called her selfish. She was just jealous. I was in a stable relationship while she bounced around from guy to guy. I walked away and Ubered to my friend's house where I am currently. I'm really angry at her. She had to have known he was M's dad, and if she somehow didn't, how could she even marry someone without knowing their kid's name? My boyfriend has been calling me, but I don't have the heart to answer, and my mom and aunt have been blowing up my phone with angry messages calling me an a-hole for not supporting her, second chance at love, when I ruined the first. I'm really starting to believe their words, and I'm wondering if I was unreasonable and overreacted. So AITA? Thank you guys for all your advice and kind words. I messaged my boyfriend to let him know I'm not mad at him and apologize for not replying to him earlier. We're meeting tomorrow morning to talk about what happened, so I'll update you all again once I get more details if you'd like. NTA, you did not ruin her marriage. Your dad did it by having an affair. It was not your place nor your business to tell your mother about it. This was solely between your parents. Look, assuming that your mother and your boyfriend's father get married, that really should have no effect on your relationship with your boyfriend. Yes, it is weird. However, getting married only technically makes you half siblings. You know, you're not really brother and sister. Please try not to let it bother you. Block the calls from your mom and aunt. By the way, this is none of your aunt's business. If she brings it up, just tell her, this is not open for discussion. Contact your boyfriend as soon as you are able to. Don't let him go through this alone. You two need each other. I wish you the best and I'm sending you a virtual hug. NTA, you've been with your boyfriend for a very long time. Your mom is a gigantic a-hole for getting with boyfriend's dad, and then the way she sprung it on you is guilt-tripping you after the fact. Sounds like this is still very fresh. So definitely give yourself enough time to cool off before speaking to your mom. A text letting her know you're okay is sufficient. Also, there's a non-zero chance this engagement doesn't work out and it's going to make things awkward for you. You've definitely got the right to be upset.
Next story.
My sister-in-law, 39, is a loving, attentive mother, but she coddles her son, 7, heavily, and it causes all sorts of issues. One main issue is that he is an incredibly picky eater, and she allows it to continue. Recently, my sister-in-law had an appointment and needed to leave her son with me for about 2 hours. Normally, our parents do the babysitting, but this appointment was fairly last minute, and parents were not available. So she phoned me, and I agreed since I was working from home that day. She dropped off nephew, and everything was fine until he declared he was hungry. Now, I have severe anaphylactic to peanuts, so for obvious reasons, I don't keep any peanut products in my home. My nephew will only eat a couple foods, peanut butter on cinnamon toast being one of them, which was his request this day. I let him know I had neither peanut butter nor cinnamon toast, and he got very, very upset. I offered him an array of other choices I had in my home, such as banana, frozen pizza, oatmeal, yogurt, and quesadillas, but none of it he wanted for various reasons. I admit I don't have the most kid-friendly food, but I'm an adult male, so why would I? Here's the a-hole part. I texted my sister-in-law and asked what to do. She told me she placed a roll of peanut butter cookies in his pack and to give him those. At this point, she was only 30 minutes away from being done with her appointment. I decided I didn't feel comfortable with my nephew having a peanut butter in my home. He's 7, so he's messy, leaves crumbs, touches everything, all of which is totally fine with any other food except peanuts. If I touch any kind of peanut product, I'll get a skin reaction. I don't even eat foods that come from facilities that are not peanut-free due to risk of anaphylactics. I decided my nephew could wait 30 more minutes for sister-in-law to have the snack he preferred. I held him over with a glass of milk and we watched TV until his mom arrived, without much further incident. She picked him up and off they went. Later that evening, my sister-in-law's wife, calls me and accuses me of starving her son intentionally. She yelled, told me if he was hungry for the cookies, I should have just had him eat outside, an option that may have worked, but I hadn't considered, and that I should have reminded sister-in-law of my allergy before she brought nephew over. I defended my decision, but the conversation ended poorly. I haven't spoken to her since, but I'm just trying to figure out if I am in the wrong and if I need to apologize. Sister-in-law wasn't being malicious. She simply forgot to pack safer food for me to give him, and he refused any food I had in my home. AITA? NTA? You're allergic to peanuts, for gosh sakes. Like, what did she expect? For you to go into anaphylactic shock so the kid could have their favorite food? You tried to offer other options they didn't want, which are, fun fact, typically kid-friendly. On top of all this, it wasn't like an all-day thing.